I asked the question on the Boxing Clinic Facebook page, you know, if Adrien Broner loses, will you guys consider him a stepping stone, you know, or like a journeyman, not really a journeyman, but like a stepping stone, you know, to bigger and better things for other fighters? You know, similar to what Andre Berto is now. And Andre Berto has a similar hype around him to Adrien Broner when he was coming up at 147. Of course, he's a career 147. He didn't get the, you know, get the 4 weight class championships like Adrien Broner did. And it's your boy CJ Goodfella back with the Boxing Clinic once again. And but he was supposed to be that deal coming out the Olympics, and you know, things went sour for him, and a lot of people are now comparing, you know, Adrien Broner to being Andre Berto 2.0 and being a stepping stone. And I gave it deep thought when this fight first started. You know, a lot of people are, you know, very irate with Adrien Broner because he's wasting his talent, not being focused, and, you know, being stupid outside the ring. And with Andre Berto, that, I don't know if that was the issue with him, but he just didn't ever live up to the hype. You know, he had all the physical gifts, he just didn't have the skills. And Broner actually has the skill set and the physical gifts to, you know, make good on it. And a lot of people are, you know, down on Broner, and specifically in the black community. When I just watched the interview with him and Fight Hype, and he says how, you know, blacks don't support their fighters like everybody else, Mexicans and stuff like that. And when you talk about race, it's a touchy subject. But you got to agree. You know, he said basically in the black community, it's a crab in a bucket mentality. And he's very, very true. You know, we are our own worst enemies. But not to harp on that, but just thinking about what he was saying and knowing how intelligent he was. Like I tell this story all the time. I think when he was 14, 15, he was accepted into Michigan Tech University as a full-time student. And, you know, he got sent home because he was immature. And with everybody upside, you know, everybody upsides and positive things, with them it's always a negative. And immaturity has always been his negative downfall. You know, we're going to jail, not being able to go to the Olympics, and, you know, everything he done been through, you know. And hopefully he's starting to mature. And we won't even have to question if he becomes a stepping stone, because he goes on to beat Mikey Garcia, and now his, you know, now his name is back there in the headlines as being a potential, you know, Hall of Famer, hopefully. But you know, if you think about it, you know, Amir Khan's been knocked out several times. You know, nobody calls him a stepping stone. You know, Vladimir Klitschko was on the brinks and some of his careers getting knocked out. Nobody said this was a make or break for Vladimir Klitschko, especially being, you know, with Broner being a multi-world champion. You know, when, you know, you see different guys that go through different things. You know, Cotto been whooped on a few times and, you know, was able to reinvent himself and put his name, you know, back in the limelight. You know, Zab Judah had a lot of rebirths. You know, a lot of guys. You know, Jermaine Taylor was able to get knocked out by Pavic and able to make a name in the Super 6 for him, even though he didn't do it. So it's going to be opportunities for Broner, even if he loses this. And I'm on the side of saying he's not a stepping stone, you know, if he loses this fight, in my opinion. No. Not because, you know, people don't like him, and a lot of people get turned off because he's wasting his potential. But you know what? Gotta support Adrien Broner in the black community. And if you support him, even if you're not black, you know, you gotta stick with dudes through good times and bad times, even no matter how stupid shit he does. Because if you was in that position, you could do some of the dumbest, stupidest shit that he does, but, you know, you just don't see it right now because you don't got what he got. And a lot of potential, a lot of skills, a lot of money come with a lot of issues. And you know, I'm rooting for AB Saturday night, even, you know, before the Mikey Garcia thing, which I settled down and don't think he that racist. You know, I don't think it's racist. You know, even though he didn't speak on it, Broner was asked on it. You can check Fight Hype for that. But just pulling for Broner, man. You know, gonna support him through the good and the bad. Still picking Mikey Garcia. You know, he gonna have to show me that he got to make good. But if he loses, he's not a stepping stone or a journeyman. He definitely can reinvent himself like the rest of them guys have reinvented themselves many, many times before. And let's see if Broner makes good and cashes his check and goes on to do bigger and better things. We gonna.